welcome back to my channel. I'm filming in my living room today instead of in my room in front of the bookcases like normal. Right now I have a light bulb burned out and I don't have yet like a ring light, so the lighting is just bad. I thought it'd be better out here. And I really wanted to film because I have a rant review on Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. This book I didn't have really high expectations for it. I hadn't heard anyone talk about it or anything. I was just kind of thinking like an Alice in Wonderland retelling. It's a trilogy, so I thought it would be decent. The publisher decided to put out 2 more of these books after the first one. But it was horrible. Every sticky note in this book is something stupid that happened, and the video I think would be ridiculously long if I hit on all of them, but I'm going to hit on as much as I can just to share how agonizing this book was for me to read. So to start off with, the main character Dinah is the Princess of Wonderland, and her father's the king. At the beginning of the book, he's calling the whole court together. But it's just a very awkward scene. So the king gets everybody together in the court and he starts making this speech, which sounds like kind of pointless at first. But he's talking about the war that he led the kingdom through, and I'm gonna try to read like a part of it so you get kind of an idea of how this goes. Let's just read this one paragraph. War is bloody and brutal, a thing that can rip through the very heart of men. War can make a man question everything he believes in, every truth that he holds dear. Wonderland has never seen war, so allow me to confess that war can make a man ... lonely. The crowd nodded along sympathetically, and in the corner a woman burst into tears. Why is she crying? Like, it's not that moving. Anyway, let's skip down a few lines. He's talking about the queen, and then we get to the line, God forgive me, I strayed outside my marriage vows. Oh, so he just got everyone in his kingdom together to tell them he cheated. Blah, blah, blah. He wanted to kill himself. Everybody is shocked. And so at the end of this whole mess, he says that he has a lost daughter. For some reason, the entire court, like all of his subjects, are freaking thrilled that the king has this illegitimate daughter. He has an heir, okay, bear in mind, a princess who's like 17 years old, I think, at the time of this book. And everyone is so happy. They're like rejoicing that there's this illegitimate heir to the throne, which I think it's just very weird. It doesn't make sense from like a royal family, like bloodline, dynasty, like standpoint that the king would be admitting to this, or that people would be happy about it, or that it would be put off as like a good thing. It just doesn't make sense. Then, so Dinah, the main character, is obviously like pretty upset about this. She thinks it's like a disgrace to her mother. How could her father do this to her mother? How could her father do this to her? And the king gets really mad at her for expressing being upset, and says, the king tells Dinah, I never want you to mention your mother again. Her name will not be spoken in these halls. And then Dinah starts crying, and that's like really annoying, but Dinah cries a lot in this book. So that's just another thing that seemed really weird, that the king would at first open this with like, oh, I felt so bad I wanted to kill myself because I cheated on my wife. And then he's like, you can never say my wife, your mother's name again. Oh, then also there's this really just weird like line that kind of grated on me. So Dinah's horse has spots, and his name is Speckle. So when I read that, my initial thought, like anyone, was, oh, she named him Speckle because he has spots. But no. There's a sentence that she named him Speckle, for he reminded her of a speckle of rain upon her window. Homie, why couldn't his name just be Speckle because he's got spots? A speckle of rain? What are you talking about? She didn't name him Raindrop. Anyway, that's just me. Then there's like a weird thing. So the king, Colleen Oakes really wants to drive home that the king is an abusive piece of trash. So she includes things that like make him seem like an abusive piece of trash, but also like don't make sense as a character. Like he's just so mean for no reason. Like there's this one part where Dinah's like mentor or like teacher, I guess his name is Harris, and there's a scene where the king hits him. And I don't know why or like how that's acceptable, but he does. Like Harris is not a slave. He's like somebody who is like works for the family. And the king just hits him. To do some awkward scenes about Dinah and this guy that she likes. Okay, so Dinah goes to the stables, and that's how we introduce like Wardley, her love interest, who seems like kind of a weird guy, but whatever. And then Dinah has a little brother, and Wardley gives her a little wooden seahorse that he's carved to give to her little brother. And on the way back to the castle, Dinah runs into some guards. And they take the seahorse away from her. And like she's going into the castle, they start like bullying her. They're like, the king's daughter, disgraced to the throne, looks nothing like her mother. I don't understand how the legitimate princess is a disgrace to the throne, or what looking like her mother does or doesn't have to do with any of that. Anyway, so they have the seahorse. Then they just keep going with the weird, the other girl is better than her. Dinah says, I am the princess of Wonderland, and you will put it in my hand. And then the guard says, aye, indeed you are, although the other princess has the look of one. If it were up to me, pretty lady, I don't even know how to say this name, Vitior? I took French in high school, so I should be able to say that word, but I don't know. Would be the one getting the crown. I also don't understand, the book just keeps going on with this like theme of the other girl is prettier than Dinah, so she should be the queen, and Dinah is just a disgrace because she's not as pretty. So then Dinah has convinced them like they're gonna give her the little wooden seahorse back. But she's got like her cloak wrapped around her, and like one hand is out of the cloak and one hand is in the cloak, and she says, put it in my hand, and he says, no problem, and she says, no, my other hand. He looked down with a grimace at her other arm, tucked firmly within her cloak. She made no move to pull it out for him. The other spades watched in shock as he tried in vain to get the seahorse into her hand without groping her, an action surely punishable by death. What does that prove? Like, what is the point? Then we have a scene, where it introduces Dinah's brother, younger brother. He's insane, and there's this weird conversation with like her and a servant, like Dinah being like, well, why can't my little brother, I can't even remember her little brother's name, whatever. Dinah's complaining that her brother doesn't get to go to like royal events and stuff with them, and the servant is like, well, like he's insane, we can't control him, he would make a scene, he might hurt himself or somebody else. And Dinah's like, well, when I'm queen, he gets to go whenever. He may be mad, but he's my brother. Yeah, he's your brother, and that's tough, my dude, but he's crazy. You can't take him with you everywhere. He probably wouldn't like it either. Another little awkward line here. Dinah is looking in the mirror at herself, which I just really hate in books where they have scenes where like the female character is looking into a mirror and thinking about what she looks like. Especially when they start talking about boobs and comparing them to fruit sizes, like they do here. There was no curve from her bust to her waist. She was one solid square, topped with an ample bosom, more small melons than ripe peaches. Then there's a scene, it's like a royal annual croquet game, and so they have like a whole chapter devoted to the croquet game, and it's supposed to be like high stakes, but it's really boring because it's croquet. Oh, and then she's doing better at the game than her father is, And so again, just to prove that he's an abusive piece of trash, he goes over and grabs her and says, "Princess, you will let me win this game. You will not humiliate me in front of my kingdom any more than your mere existence already does." If there is any character in this book whose existence humiliates the king, it's the daughter that he had with another woman while he was married to the queen. I mean, I'm not saying that's like a 21st century modern understanding of it, but from like a royal family bloodline perspective, it does not make sense for the king to be so pumped over his other daughter as much as he is, and to hate his other daughter as much as he does. Then there's this weird thing, it doesn't make sense, it's not important to the story, but it mentions that there is a chapel in the castle that the king made, and so I was kind of wondering, what do these people worship in Wonderland? Just out of curiosity, if you're gonna start randomly talking about a chapel and religion, at least tell me what the heck they're praying to. And then also, the whole point of the chapel was that it would be a place for the commoners to come and worship. They would have like a nice church. Great. The king executes it very strangely. Every week, on one day, every Sunday, they round up the commoners like in a big group and they put them in the chapel, and then when they're done with their service, they get those people out, get a whole new group of people, and force them in and have another service. That doesn't make any sense. Who does that serve? What's the purpose? And it's not explained at all. There's just a paragraph talking about the chapel and explaining that, and then it's never talked about again. So at this point, Dinah at dinner found a piece of paper with like a name on it and a symbol. And also through this whole like first half of the book, Dinah has just like had a feeling that something bad is about to happen. So she sees this name and it's like a secret, and she like eats the piece of paper at dinner so nobody else sees the name. And then her and Wardley don't come up with this plan. She forces Wardley to go along with her on this plan to find this woman. I forget how they figure out that this chick is in the dungeon, the dark towers, the black towers? I forget. But they come up with this plan to get in. And then there's just like a really weird scene about, I don't even know why, it's confusing to me. But Dinah and Wardley are like making out in a closet, and one of the guards find them because there's guards everywhere and they're all so weird. And they catch them. Wardley says, "Get out, don't come near the princess." The guard says, "You should have taken that advice yourself. Seems like you have quite the handful there. She's not to my taste. That leans more toward the Lady Vitior and those blonde curls. But there is a certain appeal to her. I heard she's feisty like her father and crazy like her brother. She has fire in her blood." It's just, the dialogue in this book is just so weirdly worded. It's something like, someone who was like 13 and was trying to write a story about an abusive relationship or someone being like sexually harassed. That's what that dialogue would sound like somebody who has no idea, who has never had like a bad day in their life, has never had anyone be mean to them. Like, that's who wrote this dialogue. And then just like on that same note, there's just a lot of, in this book, uncomfortable sexual references, which are unnecessary, first of all. Like I was saying, very weirdly worded, like somebody who has no experience with anything, like a 13-year-old girl. And I think it's just kind of stuck in to elevate the book. This book should be like middle grade, except for like these weird paragraphs and sentences stuck in about like weird sex things. Like, this is when they're in the dungeon, the Black Tower, whatever it's called. One of the guards is talking to Wardley. "You seem close to that prisoner. Are you taking your pleasure on the side? There are a few gals in the Thieves' Tower I visit weekly. At first they protested, but now they enjoy it. Takes their minds off the torture. Not that it's so bad in that tower. just a finger or toe every now and then, but they don't need fingers or toes to spread their legs, do they? It's just uncomfy and unnecessary. So they find the person that Dinah had like the name on the book they find the person that had the name on the piece of paper that they were looking for. And Dinah just completely lies. It says, I received a note to come here, to find you, to talk to you. Who are you? You found a note with her name on it. It didn't say to go anywhere, or find anybody, or talk to anyone. You came up with this whole thing in your head. We don't know why. The prisoner is insane. She does not answer any questions. Oh, here's another thing. So when Wardley and Dinah are leaving the prisoner that they were looking for and without getting information, the guard says, did you have your way with her? She was a pretty one when she came in, not so much now that the tree has taken her for itself. Wardley slapped him across the face with an open hand. A true man never needs to take by force. Wow, Colleen Oaks. Feminism. Also, with that comment on the tree, I should say the dungeon or the towers or whatever they are built around a big tree or multiple trees. And the trees, like the tree sap makes the prisoners go crazy or something. I don't know. It was kind of confusing, and I read this book like in one night, so I really didn't care to like fully grasp what was going on. So then while they're escaping, Wardley's like, oh, we should have taken the prisoner with us, which is a complete turnaround because for this whole part of the book, Wardley has been the one like, what are you doing, Dinah? This doesn't make any sense. And then he pops off with that, and Dinah, complete character reversal, is the one with any brain who's like, we couldn't have made it out in time. Where would we have hidden her? This and that. And it's like, that doesn't make sense for their character roles. Like, Dinah is not the sensible one, and Wardley is not the impulsive one. So Dinah has never talked to her little sister until this, we can call her V. We can call her V so I don't have to say that name anymore, or try to say that name. Anyway, so we're on page 217. Dinah has not talked to her sister at all. And then, so our first lines of dialogue with V are about their mother, and it's just weird. Dinah's trying to ask about like, oh, like, where are you from? Everything like that. V says, I was born just inside the Twisted Wood at the base of the Yerke Mountains. I was born in the early autumn. Your father had camped at our village during his great battle with the Yerke and met my mother. They fell into lust. And then Dinah says, well, he was still married to my mother, the queen. V says, yes, I'm sorry. I forget that sometimes. It was not right of him to be unfaithful to your mother. I believe he was simply seeking emotional comfort in my mother's arms. Nothing more. They fell into lust. I believe he was just seeking emotional comfort. These are teenagers. I don't know any teenager that would talk like that, or an adult, or anybody. What is the dialogue in this book? Okay, so then we're so close to the end, thank God. Someone breaks into Dinah's room in the middle of the night. It's a very weird scene, like all the scenes we've talked about in this book. This guy breaks into her room, wakes her up. She like is trying to scream. He's like covering her mouth. He's like, no, don't scream, it's fine, blah. And then she finally calms down, and he says, forgive me for my bluntness. I wish there was another way to tell you, but it must be done. Your brother is dead. Again, that dialogue was just so weird, I feel like. Like, none of this feels like spontaneous, like how people talk. And then also, there was really no other way for you to do that? We don't know this character. It's literally a random person. And then also, so Dinah goes to see if her brother Charles, that's her brother's name. Her brother's name is Charles. She goes to see if he's alive or not. She's also like sobbing the whole time. And this guy has also told her like she needs to run and get out of there because whoever has killed Charles is coming for her. And she's like sobbing and like getting around the castle and stuff. And it's like, girl, can you get it together for like 2 seconds? Like, you have to be able, I think, to, in that situation, be like, I am deeply grieving, but also I might die, so I have to stop crying and like get myself together. And then really I don't have any other big sticky notes. The book ends with Dinah being like on the run from her father, who it turns out killed Charles because he's an abusive piece of trash and has no redeeming qualities, no other character traits except that he is an abusive piece of trash. And all the characters in this book only have like one trait. Dinah's father, we covered, Dinah is so whiny and cries all the time. Wardley is just there to do whatever Dinah wants to do. Charles is the crazy little brother. V is just an airhead, just a blonde airhead. We only get like that one scene of dialogue, and it's like very weirdly worded stuff about her mother and father's affair. And those are all the big characters. That one that they were breaking into the dungeon for, she ends up dead at the end of the book. She gets beheaded. There are no answers for anything with her. I mean, again, there's 2 other books, so I'm assuming like some questions have to get answered in those 2 books. But the first book in a series still needs plot. It still needs world building. It still needs character development. And I know this book is really small, like it's only like 200 pages, but it could have done those things. It just didn't. It's just poor writing overall. This book really doesn't have any redeeming qualities. The characters are flat and horrible. There's no plot. The writing is bad. Yeah, so I don't recommend this book unless you want to be grumpy with me about it. And I'm glad I filmed this video. One of my friends says she wants to read the book with all the sticky notes, and I also have like pencil writing where I put the sticky notes so I could remember what I was marking. So this book looks like it might be well loved, but actually it's just well hated. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'm hoping I can read some better books in 2020. Got 97 left, so the odds are good, probably. Thanks for watching.